Welcome to the channel. In this video, we're going to be going through a complete breakdown of the costs that you're likely to face if you are coming to live or study in Egypt. For those of you that are new to the channel, my name's Abdurahman, and I made the decision 10 years ago to move from the UK to Egypt with my family. And based on that experience of over 10 years, I'm going to be giving you a complete breakdown of the most common costs that you're likely to face when coming to live in Egypt. Now, just before we begin, I want to say a big thank you to everybody who's shown support for the channel so far. I really appreciate every single one of you. And if you're new here and you're interested in learning more about life in Egypt or ways to make money online, then I invite you to subscribe to the channel so that you never miss an update, inshallah. All of the costs that I'm going to mention in this video will be in USD dollars, so you can then convert that to the local currency, which is Egyptian pounds or whatever currency you're dealing with. So what we're going to cover in this video, I've broken it down into 11 main categories, and they are housing and rent, utilities and internet, food and groceries, transportation, schooling and education, so whether you're looking to put your child into a school or you're looking to enroll yourself into a markaz to study, visas and residency, lifestyle and activities, so extracurricular activities like sports and things like that, work and income, so I'll touch on ways to earn income online or work opportunities in Egypt, safety precautions, so how to keep yourself and your family safe, Ramadan in Egypt, for those of you looking to come out to Egypt for Ramadan, and then we'll close with some final tips and advice. So we're going to break down the cost for each one of these subjects or each one of these categories, but we'll also touch on some general advice for each one of these subjects as well. Now, I'll leave timestamps in the description below so you can skip to or come back to the bits that are most relevant to you. And for those of you that prefer this in written form, I've created a detailed PDF guide which breaks down all of these costs and more, along with a budget calculator to help you manage your finances. And I'll also leave a link to that in the description below. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is housing and rent. In this video, we're not going to get into purchasing property in Egypt. We're just going to be speaking about rental costs. So when it comes to renting in Egypt, I'm going to focus on two main areas. I'm going to talk about the central older Cairo area, specifically Nasser City, because this is an area where a lot of foreign students come to study. There's a lot of markaz for centers for studying Arabic and Qur'an. So we'll look at Nasser City, and then we're going to also look at New Cairo. New Cairo, there's a lot of new developments and compounds like Rehab. These areas are quite common with foreigners as well because it's only about 15-20 minute drive outside of Nasser City, but it's a lot cleaner, less congested, newer buildings, more modern. Typically, New Cairo is going to be more expensive in terms of rent, but we'll look at the two areas so you can get a better understanding of how much it costs to live in both of these areas. We'll look at an unfurnished apartment, let's say 2 to 3 bedrooms in Nasser City. On the lower end, you'll be looking to spend for rent around about $200 per month, and that can go right up to anywhere between maybe $500 to $600 per month. So this is for unfurnished 2 to 3 bedrooms in Nasser City. The average you'll be looking to spend is maybe about $300-400 per month. Compare that to New Cairo, so unfurnished 2-3 bedrooms in New Cairo, you'll be looking to spend around about $250-300 a month on the lower end, and that can go right up to $1,000, $1,100, around about that range for New Cairo unfurnished. The average will be around about maybe $500-600 a month, 2-3 bedrooms unfurnished New Cairo. Now, furnished apartments, they're typically a lot more expensive, and a lot of the furnished apartments that I've seen, to be honest with you, they have a lot of furniture in them. So it may or may not be to your taste, but it could be a good option if you're coming for a short period of time. You don't want to invest in getting all your own furniture, etc. Furnished apartments for Nasser City, lower end, you'll be looking at around $300 a month. Higher end, you'll be looking at even up to $1,000, $1,200 per month for furnished in Nasser City. The average would be around maybe $600-700 per month. New Cairo, on the lower end, about $400 per month. Higher end, way into the maybe $1,700, $1,800, maybe even up to $2,000 per month. That's for furnished 2 to 3 bedrooms. The average would be around about $700 to $800 per month. Now, in terms of security when it comes to your property, a lot of properties will have what's called a bawab, which is basically a doorman. Now, this is especially true in Nasser City. In New Cairo, typically you have gated communities. So at Rehab, for example, which is a popular compound with foreigners, it's completely gated. So in order to get into the compound, you have to go through a barrier. There's a gate, there's security there. You have to have a card, an ID card, in order to get into the compound. So obviously this is the more secure option. Then you've got, for example, in Nasser City, where they might not have gated compounds as readily available, but you'll have a bawab, which is a doorman. And he'll be there, or he or she, sometimes it's a female, will be there to help you in terms of anything that you need for the property. They're also there as security. So you want to make sure that you have at least a BOAB, if not, you're living in a gated community. Now, in terms of kind of rental setup costs, so it's not just the first month's rent that you pay. There are some other costs that you pay in order to get the keys and move in. So you'll be spending obviously your first month's rent up front. You'll also need to pay a rental deposit. So it's a security deposit, and it's typically between 1 to 2 months rent up front. Now, this security deposit, you will get it back when you leave the property, but it will be minus any damages to the property, or if there's any kind of outstanding utility bills, they will be deducted from that amount. And then the remainder, you'll receive that once you leave the property. And then the last thing is the agency fee. So more often than not, you'll be dealing with an estate agent in order to secure the property. They'll be the middleman between you and the landlord, and they take a fee for managing the whole process and the rental agreement. And that's typically 1 month's rent up front. So you'll be spending your first month's rent up front in advance. Then you will have 1 to 2 months rent as your security deposit. Then you'll have 1 month rent as the estate agent's fee. So you'll be looking between 3 to 4 months rent as your upfront fees to move into the property. Now, ways to find property. There's two common ways. There's online and apps. The most common apps are Dubizzle and Beirut. Beirut is typically higher end properties in more newer developments. Dubizzle has pretty much everything on there. So it has, the lower end, the higher end, it has a mix of everything. The reason why I like using these apps is because it gives you a good understanding of the market rate. So you can see all of the properties that are there. You don't have to leave the house. From the comfort of your own home, you can see all of the properties that are available on there, the pricing, images, and then you can reach out to the estate agent or the homeowner directly from that listing. The other option is to go to a local estate agent, and again, they'll show you what they have available either at their office, or they'll take you out to view properties. It's a little bit more time consuming to do it that way, but you might prefer to have that human interaction straight from the get-go. Both of these options are available to you. Even when you're using the online app version, more often than not, the contact details will be the estate agent. So you'll be dealing directly with the estate agent anyway. It just gives you that convenience of being able to see everything on the app before you go out and view anything. So I'll leave links in the description to the Dubizzle and Beirut apps. Aside from that, when it comes to renting a property or any financial dealings really in Egypt, and I'll touch on this again towards the end of the video, but it's best if you have somebody local that you trust to help you deal with these financial dealings, especially something like your rental contract, which is going to be one of your biggest expenses on a monthly basis is your rent. I would advise that you work with a local trusted Egyptian, or maybe a foreigner that's been here a number of years and that can help you navigate that whole process. And that's just to ensure that you're getting a fair deal when it comes to renting your property. Okay, so the next thing I want to cover is utilities and internet. So utilities, I'm talking about your gas, water, and electric bills. So electricity, typically you pay for your electricity on a card. So you'll get a top-up card. You go to any local convenience store and you'll be able to top up your electricity. The electricity costs, on average, you'll be looking to spend between maybe $15 to $40 plus per month. What will affect that will be your usage of things like air conditioners. In the summer, it gets quite hot, so you want to be probably using an air conditioner. You can get by with fans, but there are certain periods in the summer that it gets very hot, and you would probably prefer, if you're able to, use an air conditioner. Now, the more air conditioners that you have and the longer that they're being used throughout the day will obviously increase your electricity usage and costs. Likewise, in the winter, it can get quite cold. So you might have heaters. Now, these electric heaters, they're like oil heaters that typically people use. They obviously use electricity. So the more that you have of them, if you have one in each room, for example, and you have it going all through the day, all through the night, then this is going to increase your electric costs. But as a general rule of thumb, let's say between $15 to $40 plus per month is what you'll be looking to spend on your electricity bill. The next thing I want to talk about is gas. So gas, you've got two types of gas. You've got the natural gas, which is a line that comes straight into your property and it'll connect direct to your cooker or your boilers. Now, not every property has the natural gas line. Some older properties don't have it, and some newer properties don't have it that haven't had the gas line fitted yet. So in that case, what you'll have is a gas canister. So these are the old school gas canisters. They're typically blue color, and they will be filled with gas. And the cost to refill these gas canisters is around about 200 Egyptian pounds per month, which is about $4 or $5 in today's rate. So $4 to $5, you might need to replace it maybe once or twice. That's why it's good to have an extra gas canister spare in case, for example, you're in the middle of cooking and it runs out, you can just quickly replace it. So I would always recommend having a spare one available in your property. If it's a natural gas line that you have to your property, the cost will be relatively the same. So about maybe $5 to $10 per month on gas. Water, okay, so water, typically it's either included in your rental contract or it's separate. If it's separate, the cost for water isn't normally too much. It'd be around about $5 per month. Just with regards to the gas, if it's natural gas, you'll also get a card to top that up like the electricity. Now, internet. So let's talk about home Wi-Fi internet. Typically the cost, depending on the package that you go for, will be around about $20 to $30 per month. The internet speeds in Egypt are not great, but they are workable, and I do a lot of work online, video calls, etc., and it works fine for me. If you've got mobile data, so your mobile line, depending on the package again that you get, it'll be around about $15 per month for your mobile line. That'll give you ample data and phone calls so you can make local calls. Obviously, if you've got an international package, then there'll be different costs associated with that. But generally, if you're calling people internationally, I would recommend you use VoIP, a VoIP service or WhatsApp or something like that to contact your relatives. Okay, next thing I'm going to touch on is food and groceries. So we'll do a breakdown of the average cost that you'll be looking to spend if you were a single person, a family of 4, and let's say a larger family, let's say a family of 7. So for a single person, on average, you'll be looking to spend on your food and groceries about $5 to $10 per day. So that's about $150 to $250 per month, let's say. Then for a family of 4, that could be anywhere in the region of around $15 to $20 per day. So let's say $350 to $600 per month. And if you're a family of 7, a larger family, then maybe you'll be looking to spend around about $20 to $35 plus per day, which is about $600 to $900 per month. Now, there are several factors that could impact these costs. If you're eating out a lot at restaurants, then this could raise these costs. And if you've got younger children that require diapers and formula milk, then this will raise these costs. But generally speaking, this is a good average of how much you can expect to pay on a monthly or daily and monthly basis. Now, there are 2 options in terms of the food type. So there's local produce. One of the good things about Egypt is they do produce a lot of their own produce. So fruits, vegetables, meats, etc. All of that is widely available and produced locally. And then you've got imported goods. Now, imported goods, again, you can get meats, fruits, vegetables, etc. But typically they are a higher price tag than the local goods, obviously due to import tax, etc. So you've got both options available. Now, how you can purchase your food and groceries, you've got a few options. You've got your local convenience stores, which in the UK we call them like corner shops. I think in the States it'd just be a convenience store. Now, these are small stores, kind of independently owned, and they would have your daily essentials there. So you can get milk, bread, eggs, things like that. Now, they wouldn't have too many imported goods. It will be mainly local produce. And again, you can't get a wide variety of stuff. You won't be able to get you won't get any really fresh meats and things like that. You would have to go to a supermarket for that, which we'll touch on in a second. But these local convenience stores, they're widely available, especially kind of in Nasser City. You can pretty much find them in every street, sometimes multiple in one street. In Newark, Cairo, they're not that available, but they are still available. So you've got your local convenience stores. You can either go and walk to them or travel to them, or they can deliver if you call them or WhatsApp them. They'll be able to deliver to your house. The next option you've got is supermarkets. Now, supermarkets, for example, some of the common ones are Beam, Casion, Metro, Spinneys. There's many different types of supermarkets. These supermarkets, they've got wide variety of options. You've got the local produce and you've got the imported produce. And again, some of them do delivery. They might have their own apps, or you can contact them via phone and they will deliver to your house. Failing that, you can always go and visit them. And they're widely available. They've got branches all over the country. The other option is food delivery apps. So like in the West where we've got Uber Eats, Deliveroo, etc., they've got the most common one in Egypt is called Talabat. Talabat, they have groceries on there and they've also got restaurants on there. So you can get restaurants, you can order takeouts delivered to your home, or you can order groceries and they'll deliver it to your home. Okay, next thing we'll talk about is transportation in Egypt. One of the things that shocked me the most when I arrived in Cairo was how the roads are. The weaving in and out, the traffic, the speeding, the horns. This was something I wasn't used to in the West. And I believe statistically in Egypt, road traffic accidents is one of the highest contributors to the death rate in the country. So you want to be really careful when it comes to traveling in Egypt. Now, there are a few options that you've got to choose from. You've got public transport and you've got private transport. As for public transport, you've got a few options. So you've got microbuses. These are the white microbuses. They hold about 10 people in them, and they're notorious for speeding, weaving in and out. And personally, I've been on them several times and they feel very unsafe. They are cheap to travel, relatively low cost. So you'll be looking for a typical journey on a microbus around about 10 to 20 cents per journey. But as I said, they are probably one of the most unsafe ways to travel on the roads in Egypt. The alternative to that is tuk-tuks. So tuk-tuks are these little kind of tricycle type contraptions. They have them a lot in India as well. These are kind of useful if you're just looking to go very local to you. So let's say from your house to the local convenience store is like 1 to 2 minute drive. These tuk-tuks, they go around, especially in areas like Nasser City. It might be just convenient to you to just jump on one of those just to get to the local convenience store. Now these cost, again, around about 10, 20 cents per journey. So they're not that expensive and they're useful for just very short journeys. Another option for public transport is the metro. So if you're going on a longer journey, you can get onto the metro. The metro, depending on how many stops you take, roughly about 20 to 40 cents per journey. So relatively low cost to travel on the metro. It's pretty modern actually, the metro. The last time I was on it, it had air conditioning and it was very clean. So the metro is typically a safe way to travel, especially on a longer journey. They also have designated carts for women on the metro. So that's kind of, if you're doing a longer journey, I would recommend you can maybe check out the metro. Alternative to that, you can travel via Uber or Careem. So Careem is just a local version of Uber. It's a ride sharing app or ride hailing app. You can download the app on your phone. You can put your destination where you're traveling to. It will tell you the price up front, and there's no haggling because there's private taxis that kind of go around, or public or state taxis that go around. They're typically white in Cairo, and you can hail any one of these. A lot of them don't have their meters working, so you would have to negotiate. That could be difficult if you don't know the language. So I would recommend that you use Uber or Careem. You can see the fare before you get in, and there's no haggling, and it's pretty straightforward. Now, for a short trip via Uber or Careem, you'll be looking to spend maybe 60 cents up to $1. A longer trip will be around about $1.50 up to maybe $3. And then for airport rides, it'll be maybe about $2.50 up to maybe $4 or $5 for an airport journey. And I'd say Uber or Careem is probably one of the most safest ways to travel, especially if you're traveling with your family. Next thing we'll talk about is schooling and education. So we'll look at a few different things. We'll look at children's schooling, we'll look at tutors, private tutors, and then we'll look at adult studies. So if you're looking to come study Arabic and Qur'an. So for children's schooling, there are a few options there. So you've got the Maracas, the centers that you would have for adults as well. Now for children, the Maracas centers for teaching Arabic and Qur'an, they range typically anywhere between kind of $30 to $100 per month per child. Then you've got the schooling system. So the schooling system, typically for foreigners, you've got two options. You've got private schools and you've got international schools. Now, the private schools, they split into two categories. You've got the Islamic Azhar private schools, and then you've got the non-Azhar schools. Now, even the non-Azhar schools do have some elements of Islamic studies. You've got Arabic and Qur'an, but they don't have the other aspects of Deen which you would have in the Azhar schools. So private schools, typically, whether it's Azhar or non-Azhar, you'll be looking to spend per year, per child, around about $500 to $800 per year per child. And that's not including extra things like books, uniforms, and school bus, which will probably add about an extra $100 to $200 per year. If it's an international school, these fees are going to be considerably higher. An international school is typically linked to an international school. So for example, if it's a British international school, it'll be linked to a school in the UK. An American international school will be linked to a school in the States. And these fees are typically higher. A lot of the time as well, the examination, there'll be separate fees for examinations, and they'll be held at, for example, the British Council in Cairo, and they'll be accredited by the British body. Now, the cost for international schools is around about $3,000 to $5,000 per year per child. And there might be some additional fees, for example, for school bus, etc. Now, most schools offer installment plans, so it'll be maybe 40 to 60% deposit up front, and then the rest you can pay in installments. That might be 1, 2, or 3 installments. Each school will have their own systems when it comes to payment. Now, tutors, as for tutors, if you want to have private Arabic tutors, now this could be for your children or it could be for yourself as an adult. Arabic tutors, typically they charge around about 150 to 200 Egyptian pounds per hour, which is about $3 to $5 per hour. You might find some that charge on the higher end, but as a general rule of thumb, you'll be looking to spend about $3 to $5 per hour for a private Arabic tutor. And it's the same for Qur'an as well. Other subjects like, English, maths, science, whatever, if you've got tutors for that, especially if they're Western tutors, then the cost will probably be higher. Now, when it comes to adult Arabic study, so if you're looking to come to Egypt to study yourself, maybe Arabic or Quran, there are a lot of centers, marakas, that are available for study. And typically they'll be based in locality to Nasser City. If you're looking to come study in Cairo, you'll find a lot of these marakas in and around Nasser City. Now, the cost will vary between different institutes. I have included in the PDF guide some of the most common institutes for studying Arabic. But to give you a general rule of thumb, you'll be looking to spend per level. So they typically work on a level basis. So you'll work your way up through the different levels and you'll be looking to spend around about $50 to $100 per level. The next thing we'll talk about is visas and residency. So typically for Westerners, they can get a visa on arrival. So a touristic visa on arrival, which is valid for around about 30 days. The cost of this is $25. You can get it on arrival. As soon as you arrive at the airport, there'll be a bank kiosk that you will go to. You'll pay them the $25, and it's always good to have that in cash because they don't always accept card or even local currency. So you'll have to give them the actual amount in dollars. So it's good to have that amount ready with you in dollars, in cash. They'll give you the visa stamp. They'll put that into your passport and you'll head over to the immigration. They will actually stamp that, check it, and then you'll go through to collect your baggage. So that's the visa on arrival, which is typically available for people coming from the West. Now, if you want to stay more than the 30 days, you can renew your tourist visa. They will require an officially recognized or authorized rental contract. So that when you rent the property, you'll get a rental contract that the estate agent and the landlord and you will prepare. This is not government stamped. This is kind of an agreement between you and the landlord, okay? So in order to get that, you need to go to a place called Shahr al-Aqari. So you'll go there with your landlord, you'll need to take your ID, your landlord will bring their ID, and they will basically authenticate the rental contract and stamp it. You'll take that copy to the immigration office in Abbasiyah, and then you'll be able to put your application forward to extend your tourist visa up until about 1 year. Now, they won't necessarily give you 1 year when you go to renew it. They'll give you up to 1 year. So they might give you 3 months and then you have to go back and apply again, and they'll give you another 3 months. They might give you 6 months, but typically it'll be up to 1 year, and then you will need to exit the country and then come back in if you want to continue renewing your tourist visa. Now, other options for residency aside from the tourist option is to either enroll your child into a school. When you enroll your child into a school, whether it's an Azhar or non-Azhar school or private school, typically they'll give you paperwork that will enable you to get a residency visa for the duration of that school year. So you'll get an annual visa for your child and your family whilst that child is in school. Again, you'll go to the immigration office in Abbasiyah. Any kind of residency issues, you will go to the immigration office in Abbasiyah, and that's where you'll handle all of that, all of the paperwork for your residency whilst you're in Egypt. The other option, aside from enrolling your child in school, is to enroll yourself into a school. Not all of the marakas will be able to give you paperwork to apply for residency, so you need to check which ones can and which ones can't. Marriage to an Egyptian is another option for residency. If you're married to an Egyptian, typically you can apply for a spouse residency permit, and they can give you between 1, 3 to 5 years residency, which is renewable. And another option is to either own a business or own a property over a certain value amount. So I'm not going to go into the details of these two right now, but just know that these are other options. If you're looking to come to Egypt and invest and open a business, then there's the potential for you to get a residency based off the back of that. And likewise, if you're looking to purchase property, there's a potential for you to get a residency permit off the back of that as well. Now, the cost to renew your residency permit, whether it's via your child in school, whether it's your touristic visa, as of today, the cost is 7,100 Egyptian pounds, which is about $140 to $150 per person. Now, an important thing to mention, which is a new rule that they've introduced, is you can no longer go and just pay in the local currency, the Egyptian pounds. What you need to do is you need to have foreign currency, so either British pounds, dollars, etc., euros, and then you need to go to a local bank and then exchange that into the amount required for your visa. So you need to take the $150, for example, and then exchange that into local currency in a bank, and then get that slip. The bank will give you a slip to prove that you've completed that transaction. And then when you apply for your residency renewal, you need to present them that slip. That proves to them that you've brought foreign currency and you've exchanged it in order to pay for your residency permit. This is needed for everybody that you're applying for. So if you've got 2 people, each person will need to have their own slip for their application. Okay, next thing I want to talk about is lifestyle and extracurricular activities. So if you've got children, you want to put them into sports clubs, martial arts, things like that, football. The good thing about Egypt, another good thing about Egypt, there's a lot of these different clubs and activities for families to do. There are a lot of parks and places like that that you can go as a family, and they're all reasonably priced. So for example, a sports club or martial arts club, you'll be looking to spend, let's say, between $10 to $20 per month per person. And these are available for children and adults. Gyms also, there's a lot of gyms available in the areas I mentioned, Nasser City, New Cairo. There are a lot of variety of gyms. They've even got women's only gyms widely available. Now gyms typically work on a 3, 6 or 12-month membership basis. A 3-month membership could cost you around about $50, $60. 6 months will be a little bit more than that, maybe $80. And then for a 12-month membership, you might be looking to spend anywhere between kind of $80 to $100 for the year membership for the gym. Another thing to touch on is clothing and furniture for your home. Now, you've got a lot of locally made products in Egypt, which are going to be considerably cheaper than imported goods, but then you've also got a wide variety of imported goods as well. And this is both for clothing and, shoes and accessories and stuff like that, and then also for home furniture. So on the imported side, for example, for clothing, you've got a lot of the main Western brands, and then you've also got for home furniture things like IKEA, brands like IKEA as well, which are here in Egypt. And there's big malls that you can go to and you can find all of these options available. For example, in Nasser City, you've got a mall called City Stars, which is one of the biggest malls, I think, in Africa. And they've got a wide variety of local products and imported goods. And likewise, in New Cairo, you've got several malls. One of them is Cairo Festival City. And again, this is where they've got the big IKEA, and they've got other local and imported brands there as well. So you'll find it easy to find, good quality clothing, whether it's local or whether it's imported, and they're widely available in any of these malls. The next thing I want to cover is work and income opportunities in Egypt. Now, if you're coming from the West, typically, unless you're working in the oil sector or as a teacher in an international school, you're not going to be coming to Egypt for employment opportunities for the most part. For the most part, people come to Egypt, as especially from Western countries, either for tourism or they're coming here to raise a family or to study Arabic and Qur'an, for the most part. Now, in terms of work opportunities, you can find local work, but the average salary for working for a local Egyptian company is around about $200 to $300 per month. Now, if you're a family coming from the West, especially if you're kind of a larger family, it might be very difficult for you to live on that kind of salary. Especially with the rising costs due to inflation, etc., it might be hard for you to manage your expenses working for a local Egyptian company. Also, if you don't speak the local language, it's going to be challenging for you. There are other options in terms of teaching English. You could be a private tutor, or you could work for an international school. Now, international schools will typically pay higher salaries, so it might be easier for you to manage your expenses working for an international school. Now, failing that, one of the best things that I've kind of found to navigate, living costs, etc. in Egypt is if you can have some kind of work abroad, whether that's remotely, or what a lot of people do is they travel for a certain amount of time, save up some money and then come back to Egypt and then live for a period and then they'll travel again. Or if you can work remotely, which is best case scenario, you have some kind of remote income where you can earn your income via foreign currency, whether that's euros, British pounds, dollars, etc. You'll find that money goes a long way for you living in Egypt. There are other opportunities in terms of business, whether it's real estate or manufacturing. However, if your intention is not to come here to be a business person, then I wouldn't really look too deep into business opportunities, especially when you're first coming and you're just settling in. I'd spend some time settling in, getting used to how things work in the country, building your contacts before you invest a considerable amount of money into business opportunities in Egypt. Now, I haven't gone too deep in terms of kind of remote work and an online income in this section. This isn't the video for that, but if you want more information on that, then just let me know in the comment section below and I can cover that in a future video, inshallah. Okay, so the next thing we'll talk about is safety and the community in general in Egypt. Now, if you've done any kind of research online in terms of coming to visit Egypt, then you might find several videos online talking about negative experiences and people that have been scammed when coming to Egypt. Now, this typically happens when you've got foreigners that are coming to heavily touristic areas within Egypt. Now, when you go to these heavily touristic areas like the pyramids, typically you're going to find people there that are trying to scam you, that are trying to make a quick buck out of you. Now, I believe the government is trying to work to, remove this, but you will still find, or you could still find people that are still trying to scam you. And this is why I always say that when you come into Egypt, it's always better to try and work with a local trusted Egyptian than to try and do everything by yourself. If you come with a local trusted Egyptian, he's going to understand this, he's going to spot the scammer a mile away, and he's going to be able to help you avoid falling into some of these traps. Aside from that, typically speaking, the Egyptian people, and I've been blessed, I've been able to travel to many countries in the world, and I have to say that the Egyptian people in general are some of the most friendly and welcoming people that I've ever met. But any kind of financial dealings that you have to do, whether it's your rental contract, you're purchasing a property, a car, anything like that, it's always best to work with a local trusted Egyptian rather than to try and navigate everything yourself, just to make sure that you're getting a fair deal and you're avoiding any scammers or anything like that. The next thing is the language barrier. So if you're coming to Egypt and you don't know Arabic, specifically you don't know the Egyptian dialect of Arabic, you might find it hard in the beginning stages, especially when you're learning, to navigate and work with the locals. The thing is, obviously, you're going to be dealing with predominantly Egyptians. Egypt is not like places like the UAE where it's predominantly foreigners. In Egypt, you're going to be dealing with predominantly Egyptians. So their language, the national language, is Arabic, and specifically their version of Arabic, which is the Egyptian dialect. Now, if you know classical Arabic, Fusha, or you're coming here to study Arabic Fusha, if you're speaking to the locals in Fusha, they will understand for the most part what you're saying. Definitely more than English for the most part. English is available. We'll find people that speak English, but you'll find it harder to get around with English. You might have to use translation apps to really get your point across. So just before we finish, and I give some kind of final tips and advice, I just want to talk about Ramadan in Egypt. Now, we just had Ramadan in Egypt, and I've been very blessed to have many Ramadans in Egypt. And I have to say, Ramadan is a really, really great time to be in Egypt. You'll find that the masajid are full, especially Fajr and Isha and Taraweeh. You'll find the masajid even out into the streets. People are praying the night prayer, Taraweeh. Also, you'll find people doing a lot of charity, giving charity. You'll find iftar tables where they do like a big iftar in the street, especially kind of poorer areas where they will do iftar for the people and they can come and sit and eat. They give out food. Another thing as well, like you could be stuck in traffic and it's getting very close to Maghrib, so very close to breaking your fast. You'll find people giving out water and dates whilst you're in traffic. So this is something, and it's completely free. They're just giving it out, for the sake of Allah, to break your fast whilst you're out and you're stuck in traffic. One thing I would recommend is if you're planning to go out, you don't go out around Maghrib time because you might find yourself getting stuck in traffic. But you also might find that there's water and things like that are given to you whilst you're out. It's just a really, really good atmosphere. You know that the majority of people around you as well are all fasting. You're all kind of in it together. It's just a really, really good time to be in Egypt is for Ramadan. So if you're planning to come to Egypt for Ramadan, you will have a good time, bi'idhnillah. Okay, so finally, I want to just kind of close with giving you some final tips and advice. For those of you that are looking to come out to Egypt, to spend some time here, whether you're looking to live kind of more longer term or you're coming to study, I want to give you some general advice to make your stay better whilst you're here. So the first thing is, don't try and do everything yourself. Now, I've touched on this throughout the video, but I really want to hit home this point. If you don't know the local dialect, the language, don't know how things work here in terms of the systems, etc., it's always best if you can work with a local trusted Egyptian, especially with things like financial dealings. Failing that, if you don't have anybody, then work with somebody who's maybe a foreigner, but they spent a good amount of time in Egypt. They can communicate with the people well, and they also understand kind of the systems and how things work in Egypt. Another thing is to be patient with some of the lack of systems that are in place in Egypt. Now, I've been here for over 10 years. And there's been huge improvements in terms of how things are handled in Egypt. For example, things like the residency and how everything used to be very manual, and now they've moved to a new area, Abbasiyah. They've got a ticketing system, you take a number. It's a lot more organized. I've even heard they've got VIP services now where somebody will come and do your paperwork for you and then deliver your residency to your home. So all of this is huge improvements. Even the roads, they've put more speed cameras, speed bumps to try and organize the roads, make them more systemized. So there's huge improvements that are happening throughout the country. But if you're coming from a Western country where you're used to everything being systemized, everything being organized, you might still find that Egypt is a big change and a big shock, especially when it comes to any kind of processes like property, business, visas, schooling. There are still a lot of manual things that go on and a lot of running around, queuing up and things like that. You will have to be patient with that. That is part of what comes with living in Egypt. Now, I hope you found this video helpful. If you have and you're looking to move to Egypt anytime soon, then I've created a full detailed breakdown guide as to costs of living in Egypt, along with a budget calculator to help you manage your finances. And I'll leave a link to it in the description below. Aside from that, if you're new to the channel and you haven't subscribed yet, and you are interested in learning more about what it's like to live in Egypt or ways to earn income whilst living abroad, then I invite you to subscribe to the channel so that you never miss an update, inshallah. If you have any questions at all, if there's something that I missed that you want to know about life in Egypt or earning income online, then just let me know in the comments below and I'll try and cover it in an upcoming video. Otherwise, thank you for watching and I'll see you in the next one, inshallah.